Hello everybody, this is Kiereek here, and today we're doing the review portion for Mass Effect. It's the whole trilogy, doing all three. And this is part of the review and release series, so check out some of those other videos if you have time. Now, Mass Effect is a story-driven third-person shooter, but it is cover-based. So that means that you'll be hiding behind a wall, you'll pop out to do your skill or your special ability, and then you'll pop back down before you get all your shield and health blown off. Now, I don't mind that kind of game, but just so you know what you're getting into, it's full of action, more action for certain as the games progress. So the first one is more tactical, I feel like more RPG-like. Second one really evolved the combat, but lost a lot of the RPG elements, and the third one was mostly combat. So enjoy the RPG stuff while you can, and then appreciate the combat as you go on. In that sense, it is varying RPG elements, so I hesitate to call it an RPG. You do level up skills, you do level up abilities, and to a certain degree your stats, I guess, is what it's considered, but it's not really that in-depth. Now, you explore planets, you build relationships, I'm sure you've all seen those videos online, and make tough choices. Now, the planet exploring is not all that exciting. It's kind of a side mission thing you do to, kill time, get extra resources, extra experience. Building relationships is definitely key, but it's done through speech and missions for that person to gain their trust. That's pretty saucy in the end if you go all the way through with a lot of those relationships. Now, the tough choices. It is interesting, but it's a game that will tear your moral fibers. So you're going to have to make some pretty important choices. And it first hit me in the first game where you need to choose in one mission. I'll spoil a little bit, so cover your ears for 2 minutes if you don't want to hear this. But there's an asteroid headed for Earth, and it's going to kill everybody on it. So basically what you do is go on there and try to take these guys out who are trying to drive it into Earth. Now you have a choice where you take out the bad guy and risk everybody else getting blown up, or you do the, sensible thing and let him go. And I say sensible, but I didn't do that. I took the chance and everybody else died because of it. And it makes you really feel, it got me involved. Now let's talk about the pros, those feels. They're everywhere. You make those choices, you have companions who you learn to really love and care about, and it tore me up. I didn't want anybody dying in any of my games. I didn't want anybody dying. The only person I didn't care about is in the first game. I had one guy die as part of a storyline. I won't spoil that, but I could care less. He was kind of flat and stupid. So it gets you involved, makes you feel, makes you care. You have to struggle to choose because you care. If it didn't succeed at making you invested in your choices and in the results, then the choices wouldn't mean anything, right? You would just choose them. But because you're invested, it really makes them matter. It gives you good options for different playstyles, similar to Deus Ex. If you want to be a biotic flinging beast, well, you can do that. If you want to be like me, go for the sneaky sniper approach, you can do that too, although it kind of wore off by the third game. And if you want to go in guns blazing, be a tank, you can do that too. It's awesome. You choose the way you want to play, and it's a little bit different every time because of that. Now, in Mass Effect 1, driving the Mako was really fun. Mako was a little tank thing you get to drive around. I enjoyed that. That was possibly one of my favorite aspects. Just the physics with it. I like driving things. Awesome. I had to throw that in there. The story. This is why you really play the game here. The story, it affects every game. So you start in the first game, the decisions you make in the first game will affect your game all the way through to the end of the third one. Keep that in mind, because if you plan on playing all three, you might want to not be a total dick early on. And the kind of connectivity, it's something you don't see very often, so I really appreciate that. Finally, the voice acting for a game is pretty good. We get cursed as gamers a lot of the time, I think, with shitty voice acting, and to have a game like this where it seems like they did a better job with it, I do appreciate that. It's really awesome. So let's get on to the cons. The cons here, RPG elements really got trimmed. to make way for faster combat. I consider that a con. I like the RPG elements. I thought the first game, the combat was nice. It's basically similar. You sought cover and you popped out, you shot things, and it was good. Gave you an option for how you wanted to grow your characters, and they took that away and made me a little bit annoyed, but well, I guess it happens. You want to cater to a larger audience, that's what you do. Now, you can really feel the grind at times, especially when the planet exploring comes in. So there's a few ones in the first game where you go to a planet and, I gotta find all these different things. It means driving the Mako all around. I like driving the Mako, but I don't want to have to do it just to go all the way to the other side of the planet to pick up something. And in later games, I feel like the grind was really felt in combat. I have to fight through wave after wave after wave of enemies, and it's just the same thing over and over. I didn't enjoy the fighting the collectors, like the collector's home ship. It felt really long and drawn out. The third game, certain scenes definitely felt long and drawn out. I wanted to go a flash of combat. The first game had that really well pinned. I go to a planet, I drop down, I kill everybody in the area, and that's it. It's done. Because in real life, there aren't... Well, I shouldn't say in real life, because this game isn't real life. But to me, more realistically, there wouldn't be wave after wave of opponents. If you're fighting a little group, there's only like a few of them in that area. You clear it, you move on. Another con for me was the biotics, and in general, the skills as well, I guess. If you're not a biotic, you get things like, I throw a mine, or I can freeze somebody. They were kind of neat, but I felt like a lot of them could have been cooler, especially the biotics. Later on, the warp was one of the ones that really didn't make any sense to me. Singularity was awesome, but a lot of the biotics felt underdeveloped, or at least under-animated. Like, I could see warp being really cool if it had done something, but it just like put a little purple shroud on them for a second, and that's it. And that's kind of lame, in my opinion. Now, the probing, speaking of lame things, probing planets in the later games sucked. Don't ever make me do that again. Scanning a planet for minerals and sending a probe down, that's just like remedial task work. There's no action, there's no challenge. It's just like, do this, spend your time, kill some time, extend the length of the game. And it annoyed me a lot. I didn't like doing that. I mean, I had to in a way to get the materials for power-ups, but still wasn't great. Finally, the classes became less of a selling point in later games. I felt like in the first game, it really differed depending on what class you picked. So I went with Infiltrator, and that sniper rifle was super useful. I loved it. It was wonderful. And the mine explosive abilities was wonderful. Everything was great. Later on, I could get a biotic attack, and it didn't really matter. I could use a different weapon. It didn't really matter. Whereas in the first game, every time I equipped a shotgun or a machine gun, they would warn me about how ineffective I am with it. So I like the keeping you in line fashion the first one had, but unfortunately that was lost in the other games, making it less relevant in general. Let's talk about score. Gameplay, I think the gameplay is nice. It's smooth. It rarely had issues with a lot of cover-based games where you try to duck behind something and it misreads it. And it flows, animations were good. So gameplay, I'm going to have to give it a 2 out of 3. In general, really nice. I understood what I was doing, and it was just a matter of getting through it. Addiction, I think the addiction is quite high, mostly because of the story. I think about it all day. Like, I would play it, I would go to work, and I'd be like, man, when I get home, I am going to romance the hell out of Tally. And you know what I mean? Like, there's stuff you got to think about, and it keeps it in mind, keeps you going back. That's addiction. A 2 out of 2 sounds good for me. Reliability, I never had an issue, so I have to give it a 1 out of 1. In general, it ran fairly well, especially the first game I felt ran really well, but obviously as graphics improved, maybe there's a little bit more stutter as things go on. Generally, though, very nice looking, very capable of running smoothly. Atmosphere, gets you in that atmosphere. Like I said, you care about what happens, you care about what's going on, and that brings you into the position of Commander Shepard, right? Your character. You do feel like you are playing him, not just that you're deciding his actions. That's good atmosphere for me. 2 out of 2. And replay value. Even though different classes gave different effects to how you play the game, maybe a different way to play the game, and you have different choices you can make every time, I wasn't compelled to really play it again. I see the potential for playing it again, but part of the mystery is learning the story and learning what happens next, right? The surprise. Without the surprise, I feel like the replay value is diminished, so I'm going to have to give it a 1 out of 2. Potential for replay, not necessarily a demand for replay. That brings our total to 8 out of 10. Very respectable score, especially considering I'm judging all 3 games at once. I do recommend you play them. Try playing with the DLC because the DLC is pretty nice as well. Shadow Broker DLC was cool. DLC in the first one with the asteroid was pretty sweet. And I actually didn't try the Leviathan DLC for number 3, but I heard it's also kind of nice. So have yourself a great day, guys. Thanks for watching. Check out my gameplay portion, which should be up about the same time. And you guys have a nice day. I'll see you again soon.